The quiet frustration of doing everything right and still feeling stuck is more common than most people admit. You work, you plan, you hope, you even try to stay optimistic, yet something invisible seems to hold your life, and especially your financial reality, in the same place. Not because you are incapable, unworthy, or spiritually disconnected, but because forces far more subtle are shaping your outcomes every single day. Long before money appears or disappears, before opportunities open or close, your destiny is already being written in silence, inside the way your mind attends, the way your body feels, and the patterns you repeat without noticing. Modern neuroscience and ancient wisdom converge on a single uncomfortable truth. Reality does not respond to what you want. It responds to what you rehearse. Joe Dispenza often explains that the brain becomes a record of the past when attention and emotion remain locked in familiar loops. When the same worries, fears, and expectations are activated daily, the nervous system learns to treat them as normal. Over time, this emotional conditioning becomes identity, and identity quietly dictates behavior, decisions, and results, including financial ones. Abundance, then, is not blocked by the universe. It is filtered by the internal state we practice most. Napoleon Hill hinted at this decades ago when he described how repeated thoughts harden into beliefs and beliefs into fate. What feels like bad luck is often nothing more than unconscious consistency. Attention feeds emotion, emotion reinforces repetition, and repetition shapes destiny. This is not mystical exaggeration. It is a biological and psychological process playing out beneath awareness. This video is not about quick techniques or empty promises of wealth. It is about understanding the science behind abundance and learning how attention, emotion, and repetition quietly sculpt your financial path. As we move forward, allow yourself to observe honestly, not with judgment, but with curiosity. Because the moment you understand what you are truly practicing every day, you reclaim the power to change it. Attention as the invisible currency that shapes financial destiny. There is a silent force operating beneath every financial decision, every opportunity recognized or missed, every cycle of growth or stagnation that repeats itself across years. This force is not motivation, talent, or even discipline. It is attention. Where attention consistently rests, life begins to organize itself around that focus, often without resistance or awareness. Most people believe attention is neutral, something that simply reacts to circumstances. Yet neuroscience shows that attention is creative. It selects, amplifies, and reinforces specific neural pathways, quietly determining which realities feel familiar and which feel inaccessible. Joe Dispenza describes attention as energy with direction. When attention is habitually pulled toward urgency, lack, comparison, or fear, the brain interprets these states as priorities for survival. Over time, the nervous system adapts to this focus, calibrating perception to scan for problems instead of possibilities. Financially, this creates a subtle but powerful pattern. The mind becomes exceptionally skilled at noticing expenses, risks, and limitations, while overlooking timing, leverage, and opportunity. What appears as external scarcity often begins as internal selective awareness. This process rarely feels dramatic. It unfolds through small, ordinary moments. A fleeting worry about money while checking a phone, a background tension during daily routines, a persistent mental rehearsal of not enough disguised as realism. Attention lingers just long enough for emotion to follow, and emotion signals the body to prepare for defense rather than expansion. In this state, choices become conservative not by strategy, but by conditioning. Over months and years, this conditioning shapes income ceilings, risk tolerance, and even self-worth. One of the most misunderstood aspects of manifestation is the belief that attention works only when consciously directed. In reality, attention is most powerful when unconscious. Repeated focus creates familiarity, and familiarity creates comfort, even when the content is painful. The brain prefers known discomfort over unknown possibility because predictability feels safer than change. This explains why many people remain loyal to financial identities that no longer serve them. Attention returns again and again to the same internal narratives, not because they are true, but because they are familiar. Napoleon Hill referred to this phenomenon when he wrote about the hypnotic rhythm of thought. Thoughts that receive consistent attention begin to move automatically, no longer requiring effort to appear. Once this rhythm forms, life begins to echo it. Financial patterns repeat not because the universe is testing someone, but because attention has trained perception to see and expect the same outcomes. Opportunity can pass unnoticed simply because it does not match the internal rehearsal already underway. Attention also shapes time perception. When focus is dominated by urgency, the present moment collapses into anxiety, and the future feels threatening rather than inviting. This state subtly influences financial behavior. Short-term relief becomes more attractive than long-term coherence. Decisions lean toward comfort instead of alignment. Over time, this reinforces the belief that abundance is unstable or temporary, further anchoring attention in vigilance rather than trust. There is a deeper implication here. Attention does not merely observe reality, it participates in creating it. The brain strengthens what it repeatedly notices. Neural networks associated with lack become efficient, fast, and automatic. Meanwhile, networks associated with expansion remain weak, unfamiliar, and energetically costly. This imbalance creates the illusion that abundance is difficult, complex, or reserved for others. In truth, it is unfamiliar, and unfamiliarity often masquerades as impossibility. Nature offers a quiet analogy. In a forest, the most walked path becomes the easiest to follow, not because it was designed that way, but because repetition shaped the terrain. Grass thins, soil compacts, direction becomes obvious. Attention works the same way within the nervous system. Financial identity follows the path that has been walked most often, regardless of intention. This explains why affirmations without internal alignment rarely produce change. Attention remains loyal to the old path, even while words attempt to point elsewhere. Understanding attention as currency reframes abundance entirely. Prosperity stops being something earned through force and becomes something cultivated through awareness. Not awareness as vigilance, but awareness as choice. The nervous system responds not to what is hoped for, but to what is consistently attended to with emotion. Over time, attention trains the body, the mind, and perception itself to expect certain outcomes, making them feel natural and inevitable, but about recognizing its quiet authority. The moment attention is seen as active rather than passive, responsibility returns without blame. Financial destiny begins to look less like chance and more like pattern, and patterns, once observed, lose their power to operate unseen. As this awareness deepens, the question shifts from "why isn't abundance arriving?" to "what has my attention been practicing all along?" Emotional rehearsal and the silent programming of prosperity. Beneath attention lies another layer even more influential in shaping financial reality: emotion. While attention determines what the mind notices, emotion determines what the body believes. This distinction matters because the body does not distinguish between real experience and repeatedly imagined states. When an emotional pattern is activated often enough, the nervous system accepts it as truth, and truth, in biological terms, becomes the reference point from which behavior, perception, and decision-making emerge. Joe Dispenza often emphasizes that emotions are not reactions, they are signals. Each emotional state carries information that instructs the body on how to prepare for life. Gratitude signals safety and openness. Anxiety signals threat and contraction. Guilt signals unworthiness. Over time, these signals are memorized by the body. When the same emotional tone accompanies financial thoughts again and again, the body learns to associate money with a specific internal climate, long before any conscious reasoning occurs. This is where many people unknowingly sabotage prosperity. They may think about abundance but feel tension while doing so. They may visualize success, yet carry anxiety in the chest or heaviness in the stomach. The body listens to sensation more than language. When emotion contradicts intention, emotion wins. The nervous system organizes reality around what it feels, not what it hopes. In this way, emotional rehearsal becomes the true blueprint of financial destiny. Emotional states tied to money often originate early. Childhood experiences, family dynamics, and unspoken beliefs shape how safety, value, and survival are felt internally. Even after circumstances change, the emotional memory remains active. An increase in income does not automatically dissolve a nervous system conditioned to scarcity. Without awareness, Old emotional programs continue running beneath new external conditions, recreating familiar stress regardless of actual resources. Carl Jung described this phenomenon through the concept of complexes. An emotional complex forms when strong feelings attach themselves to repeated experiences, creating an autonomous psychological pattern. Once activated, the complex influences perception and behavior independently of logic. Financial complexes often operate this way. A person may intellectually understand abundance, yet emotionally respond to money with fear, distrust, or self-doubt. The complex becomes the unseen hand guiding outcomes. Emotion also influences timing. When emotional states are dominated by urgency or impatience, the perception of time compresses. Decisions feel pressured, and subtle signals are overlooked. In contrast, emotional coherence creates a sense of spaciousness, allowing perception to widen. Opportunities are not forced into existence. They are recognized when the nervous system is regulated enough to notice them. Prosperity, in this sense, follows emotional availability rather than effort alone. Another misunderstood aspect of manifestation is the belief that intensity equals effectiveness. Strong desire, when paired with emotional lack, amplifies absence rather than presence. The body reads intensity without coherence as instability. Over time, this creates cycles of excitement followed by disappointment, reinforcing the belief that abundance is fleeting. Emotional consistency, not emotional force, is what trains the nervous system to trust new outcomes. The body becomes addicted to familiar emotions, even uncomfortable ones. Stress, struggle, and anticipation can feel normal after years of repetition. This emotional familiarity explains why sudden ease or stability may feel unsettling. The nervous system resists what it does not recognize. In financial terms, this resistance can manifest as self-sabotage, avoidance, or subtle disruptions whenever progress threatens to exceed emotional comfort zones. Nature again offers insight. A river follows the path of least resistance, shaped by terrain carved over time. Emotion carves similar channels within the body. Financial energy flows along these channels, regardless of conscious desire. Attempting to redirect flow without reshaping the emotional terrain results in temporary change, followed by regression. Sustainable prosperity emerges when emotional states slowly reorganize, creating new pathways that feel natural rather than forced. Greg Braden speaks of coherence as the alignment between heart and mind. When emotional signals match cognitive intentions, the body enters a state of internal agreement. In this state, perception sharpens, stress decreases, and behavior becomes more precise. Financially, coherence creates stability. Not excitement, not euphoria, but steadiness. From steadiness, trust develops, and from trust, opportunity becomes visible. Prosperity is not blocked by external circumstances as often as it is limited by emotional rehearsal. The body becomes the archive of what has been repeatedly felt. Once this is understood, abundance no longer feels mysterious or random. It becomes an extension of emotional memory. And memory, unlike fate, can gradually be rewritten as awareness deepens and coherence replaces contradiction. Repetition, identity, and the architecture of financial reality. Attention selects, emotion convinces, but repetition is what turns an inner state into identity. Repetition is the mechanism through which the nervous system decides what is normal, what is safe, and what belongs. When a thought is repeated often enough, it stops feeling like a thought and starts feeling like truth. When an emotion is repeated consistently, it stops being a reaction and becomes a personality trait. Over time, this process shapes not only behavior, but the very sense of who someone believes they are in relation to money, opportunity, and value. Joe Dispenza explains that the brain is a prediction machine. Its primary function is not to discover new realities, but to efficiently recreate familiar ones. Repetition trains the brain to anticipate certain outcomes, and anticipation quietly organizes perception. This means that long before a financial result appears, the nervous system has already rehearsed it internally, sometimes thousands of times. The body learns what to expect, and expectation becomes a self-fulfilling architecture. Most people associate repetition with habits, but repetition operates at a much deeper level than visible routines. Emotional reactions repeated daily become automatic. Internal dialogue repeated silently becomes background noise. Posture, tone of voice, and micro-decisions begin to align with the same internal story. Financial identity is not built through dramatic moments, but through these subtle repetitions that rarely reach conscious awareness. Over time, life begins to mirror this identity with remarkable precision. This is why change often feels temporary. New strategies may be adopted, new goals set, and new intentions declared, yet the underlying identity remains unchanged. The nervous system recognizes the old self as familiar and the new self as unstable. Repetition pulls behavior back toward the known, even when the known is uncomfortable. The result is a cycle where progress is followed by regression, reinforcing the belief that prosperity is fragile or undeserved. Bruce Lipton's work on subconscious programming illuminates this process. He describes how the subconscious mind operates largely through repetition, absorbing patterns without evaluating them. Once a pattern is learned, it runs automatically, conserving energy. Financial beliefs absorbed early in life, then emotionally reinforced over years, become deeply embedded programs. Even when consciously rejected, they continue to influence behavior until new repetitions slowly overwrite them. Identity forms at the intersection of repetition and emotion. A person who repeatedly feels tension around money develops an identity oriented toward vigilance. A person who repeatedly feels relief only when avoiding financial responsibility develops an identity oriented toward withdrawal. These identities are not moral failures. They are biological adaptations. The nervous system learned what seemed necessary to survive. Over time, survival strategies harden into self-concepts. Carl Jung described identity as a constellation of repeated psychic patterns. When these patterns remain unconscious, they govern life from behind the scenes. Financial identity often operates this way. Someone may describe themselves as unlucky, cautious, or realistic, without realizing these labels emerged from years of repetition rather than objective truth. Once an identity is named, behavior aligns with it, and reality responds accordingly. Repetition also influences perception of effort. When struggle has been repeated long enough, ease feels suspicious. When instability has been repeated long enough, calm feels empty. The nervous system craves what it knows. This explains why some people unconsciously disrupt stability when it appears. Prosperity challenges identity before it rewards it. Without internal familiarity, abundance can feel like a threat rather than a gift. Nature again provides a quiet metaphor. A tree grows in the direction it leans most often, shaped by wind, light, and gravity over time. Its form is not chosen, it is rehearsed. Financial reality grows the same way. Each repeated reaction, each repeated expectation, each repeated emotional response applies pressure in a particular direction. Eventually, the shape becomes fixed enough to feel inevitable. Repetition is neither good nor bad. It is simply loyal. It reinforces whatever it is given. This understanding removes blame and replaces it with clarity. If repetition has shaped limitation, repetition can also shape expansion, but only when the emotional and attentional patterns beneath identity begin to change. Identity does not shift through force, but through sustained exposure to new internal states until they feel familiar. It is gradual, subtle, and often invisible from the outside. Identity changes quietly, one repetition at a time. When repetition no longer reinforces the old story, the nervous system begins to reorganize. And as identity shifts, reality follows, not as a miracle, but as a natural response to a new internal architecture that has finally become stable enough to sustain prosperity. Coherence between mind, emotion, and action. As the foundation of sustainable prosperity, when attention, emotion, and repetition begin to shift, a deeper requirement quietly emerges. Prosperity does not stabilize through thought alone, nor through emotion in isolation. It stabilizes through coherence. Coherence is the state in which what the mind anticipates, what the body feels, and how life is approached no longer contradict one another. Without this internal agreement, even positive change remains fragile, easily disrupted by stress, doubt, or old reflexes. Joe Dispenza describes coherence as a measurable biological state. When the brain and heart operate in harmony, the nervous system exits survival mode and enters regulation. In this state, perception becomes clearer, reactions slow down, and decision-making gains precision. Financially, coherence does not create impulsive action or blind optimism. It creates consistency. Choices begin to reflect long-term alignment rather than short-term relief. The body no longer sends conflicting signals that sabotage intention. Many people experience moments of clarity, inspiration, or motivation, yet those moments fade because coherence is not sustained. The mind may envision growth while the body carries anxiety. Emotion may desire expansion while behavior remains cautious or fragmented. These internal contradictions create energetic noise. Life responds not to intention, but to the dominant signal produced by the whole system. When signals conflict, outcomes become unstable. Gregg Braden speaks of coherence as a bridge between inner state and external reality. Incoherence, by contrast, produces friction. Friction drains energy, narrows attention, and reinforces hesitation. Financially, this appears as inconsistency, progress followed by hesitation, opportunity followed by retreat. Coherence removes this oscillation. It does not guarantee immediate success, but it creates a stable platform from which growth can occur without collapse. Coherence also reshapes the experience of time. When internal systems are misaligned, time feels scarce and pressured. Decisions feel rushed, and patience feels unbearable. When coherence emerges, time expands. There is room to sense timing rather than force it. Prosperity becomes less about speed and more about rhythm. This rhythm allows opportunities to mature, instead of being pursued prematurely or abandoned too quickly. Another subtle aspect of coherence lies in self-trust. When thoughts, emotions, and behavior align, trust naturally develops. The nervous system learns that internal signals are reliable. This trust reduces internal resistance, freeing energy previously consumed by doubt. Financial decisions become less emotionally charged, not because they matter less, but because they are no longer filtered through unresolved tension. Clarity replaces urgency. Incoherence often hides behind spiritual language. Concepts such as surrender or detachment are sometimes used to justify inaction or avoidance. True coherence does not reject action, it refines it. Action taken from coherence feels measured, intentional, and sustainable. Action taken from incoherence feels either forced or delayed. Prosperity responds differently to each. One builds momentum, the other dissipates it. Nature again offers guidance. Consider a flock of birds moving in formation. No single bird controls the group, yet coherence allows fluid movement without collision. Each bird adjusts subtly to the others, creating collective intelligence. Financial coherence functions similarly. Internal systems adjust until movement becomes efficient and responsive. Energy flows without waste. Direction emerges without strain. Carl Jung viewed integration as essential to psychological health. When different parts of the psyche remain divided, energy is lost to internal conflict. When integration occurs, vitality returns. Financial life reflects this principle. When values, emotions, and behavior align, money becomes a tool rather than a source of identity conflict. Prosperity stops being something to chase and becomes something that accompanies alignment. Coherence does not eliminate challenges. It changes the way challenges are processed. Instead of triggering collapse or overreaction, difficulty becomes information. The nervous system remains regulated enough to adapt. Over time, this adaptability compounds. Small, coherent adjustments accumulate into significant transformation. Prosperity grows not through dramatic leaps, but through sustained internal agreement. Visualization without emotional regulation creates fantasy. Discipline without emotional alignment creates burnout. Emotion without structure creates instability. Coherence unites these elements into a single signal. Life responds to that signal with consistency. Financial reality begins to reflect not effort, but integrity. As coherence deepens, prosperity feels less like achievement and more like a natural extension of internal order. The external world mirrors the internal state, not because of mystical reward, but because systems in harmony produce predictable, stable outcomes. When mind, emotion, and action speak the same language, reality listens. Abundance, when stripped of fantasy and excess promise, reveals itself as something profoundly human and deeply ordered. It is not a reward granted by the universe, nor a prize reserved for those who master the right words or rituals. It is the natural consequence of an internal system that has learned coherence over chaos, clarity over noise, and presence over urgency. Throughout this journey, one truth becomes evident. Financial destiny is rarely decided by single moments, but by what is practiced silently and consistently beneath awareness. Attention teaches the mind what matters. Emotion teaches the body what feels safe. Repetition teaches identity what is familiar. When these three forces operate without awareness, they quietly recreate the past. When they begin to align, they open space for something new to stabilize. This is not about forcing optimism or rejecting difficulty. It is about understanding that the nervous system responds to lived experience, not intellectual desire. What is repeatedly felt becomes believable. What is believable becomes real. Joe Dispenza often reminds us that transformation happens when the body learns a new emotional future before it arrives. This learning is gentle, gradual, and deeply personal. It does not require perfection. It requires honesty. As emotional patterns soften, attention widens. As attention widens, repetition changes, and as repetition changes, identity reorganizes. Prosperity then stops feeling distant or fragile. It feels appropriate, grounded, and sustainable. This is the science behind abundance, not magic, not luck, but alignment. When inner systems begin to agree, life responds with order, not instantly, but faithfully. Before you move on, pause with this question. If your financial future was shaped only by what your attention, emotions, and repetition have practiced so far, what direction would it be taking right now? If this reflection resonated with you, subscribe to the channel and stay with this journey. More chapters await on the final screen, continuing the exploration of consciousness, coherence, and the quiet architecture of transformation.